Okay, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Now, all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Chase? Here. Mr. Coble asked to be excused, Mr. Chairman. He's traveling.
Yeah, I got an email.
Mr. LaCourte?
Here.
Ms. MacGyver?
Here.
Mr. Mettler?
Here.
Mr. Pettit?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Alderman?
Here.
Mr. Onyaka?
Yeah.
Chairman Orsini?
Here. Okay, so first on the agenda tonight is the minutes of the regular meeting from September the 19th. And I'll entertain any comments or corrections. Failing those, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Mr. LaCourte?
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Alderman?
Yes.
Mr. Onyaka?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini?
Yes. We have one resolution, docket PLN 12-00009, L'Oreal. This was for the L'Oreal solar panel field application that we heard last month. If there are no comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Mr. LaCourte?
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Alderman?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini?
Yes. Voucher, Planning Board Attorney, Martin Murphy, his retainer for October, and miscellaneous, just for transparency's sake, miscellaneous includes kind of what?
Actually, I'm not sure right now. I don't have it in front of me. It's just one of our billings. I don't think it's a developer's escrow. It probably has to do with,
I can tell you, I got the bill.
okay.
Oh, we had him come in a little bit earlier to discuss some of the issues that were coming before a planning board meeting, so, and the master plan stuff. So that's why it was $108 extra, because we asked him to come in early to meet with us.
Okay, that's fine.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Mercado, condition of approval?
I can summarize this. We received a letter from Mr. Lanford on behalf of Mercado. There was a site plan approved, docket number PLN 080003. It was a mixed-use development on Hamilton Street. It had a total of 4 apartments upstairs. They had some variances that were associated with that approval. As a condition of that approval, the board conditioned it upon one of the units being an affordable unit. In basically the 4 years since, it hasn't been constructed. I would guess maybe partially because of that condition, and they're asking for the board to grant the relief of that condition. Instead of providing the one COA unit, they'd be willing to make a payment in lieu towards the Township Affordable Housing Fund. And I've had a chance to look at this proposal, and if the board is inclined to go in that direction, what I would recommend is normally the fee for residential development is 1% of the equalized assessed value. If in the case of a density variance, the additional unit that's realized is assessed, the fee is 6% of the equalized assessed value. In looking at the application, the sum of the variances that were granted, in my opinion, basically gave the applicant one additional unit that they may not otherwise have realized. So if 3 units at 1% and the additional unit at 6, that comes up to a total of, or an average of 2.25% of the equalized assessed value. So if the board was inclined to go in that direction, that would be my recommendation to this board, that the residential component of this development would be assessed a fee of 2.25. If the board has any questions, obviously I'll here to answer them.
Mr. Healy?
Yep.
Yeah. This is this is down near Home Street? Is this?
I believe, no? Mr. Lanford shaking his head.
I know there was one that was near Home Street, and I'm trying to remember which one this is.
Excuse me, for the record, Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is right next to the BP station, which is sort of midway between Franklin Boulevard and New Brunswick. And if you're coming from this direction, it's on the left side. It's not the project near Home Street.
Okay.
Okay, and just some further illumination. When we were here some years ago, the township had a great concern that there may be a need for affordable housing units and thought they had a shortage. That's why they asked the applicant to provide the unit, which he agreed to do. At this juncture, I understand from speaking to Mr. Healy, the township has more than enough affordable housing units. Again, we're not looking not to do it. We would rather pay in lieu of having the township have to manage one isolated unit in one building. So that's why we requested it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
at this point in time, I would have, 4 years ago, I would wholeheartedly support the one unit. At this point, I'd support relief of the condition in lieu of payment to the town at the 2.5%. I think,
Yeah, 2.25.
I think we can probably use the money in the fund a little bit better than one unit at this point.
And I would agree with that. Mr. Lanford is correct, I guess, well, you got it from me, basically, that we certainly are not in a position where we're looking for COA units at this point. We're certainly in a compliant condition, so this money could go towards housing rehab in the future, or some other affordable housing activity.
Any other comments from the board? Seeing,
Oh, the Supreme Court is hearing the COA appeals. Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, I don't think we need the one unit.
yeah, this is probably de minimis as far as that's concerned. Excuse me. So if there, do we just need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Mark's suggestion of 2.25%.
I'll second it.
Let's do a roll.
Eliminate the...
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Mr. LaCourte,
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver,
Yes.
Mr. Mettler,
Yes.
Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Alderman.
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Okay, our first hearing tonight, so we have, doesn't seem to be a lot of public here, but at any rate, we have one sort of regular hearing, and then 3 that are master plan amendments hearings based on what we talked about at the work session, so,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I have to recuse myself. I have a conflict of interest on this
Okay.
Genesis issue.
okay, that's fine. Come back for the master plan. Okay, no problem, Victor. So Genesis FDC CDC Somerset Senior Housing, PLN 11-00015. Originally slated for October 3rd and carried tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford, 428 Elizabeth Avenue, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This applicant appeared before this board on August 3rd, 2011, to seek preliminary site plan approval for the project known as Genesis, which is at the corner of Franklin Boulevard and Hamilton Street, and also fronts on Martin Street and Norma. It encompasses the entire block. The board, on August 3rd, 2011, granted preliminary site plan approval, and the plan that was before the board at that time was the construction of a 72,322 square foot building, which consisted of the entire first floor of the building being dedicated for either either commercial or office use, and the second and third floors being developed for age-restricted affordable residential units, 47 of them, and 5 non-age-restricted but affordable units for veterans, and that was our plan at that time. And obviously, when the board granted the approval, there were staff reports that were generated as a result of that plan, and those staff reports required certain amendments to the plan, and also the board imposed certain conditions which required amendments to the plan. We then submitted an application for an amended preliminary site plan approval and final site plan approval, which is the application which is before the board this evening. There are a couple of differences as far as the breakdown of the building. The building actually has been made slightly smaller, going from 72,300 square feet to 71,486 square feet. We have eliminated the commercial component on the section of the building fronting along Franklin Boulevard, and have retained what is now an office use, but either office or retail as permitted by ordinance along Hamilton Street. And on the Franklin Boulevard side where there was commercial, we're changing the number of units. We're changing that to residential units, so there would be 64 units. 58 would be one-bedroom senior affordables, 5 would be for veterans, and there would be a unit for the superintendent. What I'm going to try to do this evening is very briefly bring back my architect, because as a result of the last hearing, there are architectural changes that have been made. And also Mr. Ford, who's our site engineer, to go over the site changes that have been made as a result of the staff reports. Also, since we submitted this application, we received staff comments to the amended plan. As you noted, we were originally scheduled actually in September, then October, now we're here. The reason is, since we submitted our revised plan, we've had at least 2 meetings with township staff, including Mr. Dominic, Mr. Healy, the engineering department, to go over the changes to the plan. We also had a meeting with representatives of the Hamilton Street Business District because they had some concerns and have generated 3 reports in conjunction with the plan. We had a meeting with them here in the municipal building, and within the last 2 weeks had separate meetings on the site. One meeting with Mr. Healy, Mr. Dominack, Mr. Zelnick, and Mr. Hauk representing the township to discuss certain site improvements and how we can best deal with the plan and issues that were raised in the staff reports. We also had a site meeting last Thursday with the Hamilton Street Business District where we walked the site to go over some of their concerns. What I have done, or what we have done, is basically, and I've marked these in advance again to try to expedite this, is marked the original plan that was before the board, when we were here the first time, as A1. A2, I have marked as the revised plan which we submitted, and quite frankly, we're not going to spend any time on it because we've changed that also as a result of the meetings we had. And then we have A3, which is the plan which was generated as a result of the meetings we've had with the staff and Hamilton Street Business District. So what I'm going to do is have our architect basically compare where we were 9 months ago to where we are today with the plan that we're asking for your blessing. I will do the same thing with the engineer. When all of the dust settles, there are really 3 issues that still need to have some discussion that are yet to be resolved. One of them deals with the Hamilton Street Business District's requirement of brick soldier course along the sidewalk, which their plan calls for it along basically Franklin Boulevard, Hamilton Street, and Norma, up to our driveway on Norma. We have met with them. We have agreed to put some of that brick in. We don't want to do it all, and we can explain to you why, and it'll be up to the board to determine whether we're going to do it or not do it, and that's one open issue. There was a second open issue in their report dealing with some lighting along Hamilton Street. We have addressed some of their lighting issues. They've asked us to look at some additional lighting. Again, I'll present some brief testimony of that. And the third issue doesn't deal with Hamilton Street. It deals with the engineering department, who, in reviewing our revised plan, has asked us to relocate a driveway, the driveway on Martin Street. We do not wish to do that. I will present engineering testimony. I will present testimony from Ms. Dolan and from also from the applicant as to why we would like to keep the driveway where we would like to keep it. Those are the three issues that need to have board input and board discussion. The rest of the issues are really here because we need to show you what we've changed, why we've changed it, and how we're in compliance with the ordinance. The fourth issue, which I ultimately needs the board's blessing also, but I think generally staff agrees, is, if you recall, we have the site, and then we have another lot on the opposite corner of Martin and Norma, which is right now a parking lot which was used by Franklin State Bank, which has sort of gone into disrepair. We need that parking lot as part of our project for density. We show it as parking. You'll hear testimony, and we testified the last time, we really don't need the parking spaces. We just need them to meet the zoning ordinance requirement. What we have done, or what we are requesting, is that we be permitted to bank those parking spaces rather than to redo the whole parking lot. What we would do is, we're proposing to do, is rip out all of the asphalt that is there because it is in disrepair, and basically seed and grass that to make it a open area of grass, and it'll be a banked parking lot. If it's ever needed in the future, we will build it. And at the same time, our plan shows a sidewalk from our site along Martin Street to that parking lot. We would request that we be permitted to not construct that at this time. We would, obviously, if we ever build that parking lot, would build that sidewalk. So that's another request that we have. And I don't want to speak for staff. Mr. Healy can deal with it when the testimony comes, but I think staff agrees that that's an appropriate resolution as to that issue. Having said all of that, I would like to call Kurt, our architect, have him sworn.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do. Kurt, can you give the board, first of all, state your full name, spell your last name.
Yes, my name is Kurt Vierheilig, Vierheilig.
Mr. Verheilig, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
I am.
And you testified at the meeting last August and gave the board your credentials and qualifications,
I did.
and you were accepted,
He's accepted.
and you're still licensed today.
Still, yes.
Good. As I indicated, we have exhibits A1, which is the original plan that was before the board in August, and the new plan that's here this evening. Can you briefly take the board through the changes to the plan? And I guess the easiest way to do it is to talk about Franklin Boulevard, then talk about the intersection, and then talk about Hamilton Street, and go over the changes.
Sure. From the preliminary site plan approval drawings, some of the differences and changes that we made to the building facade were as a result of not implementing the retail component along Franklin Boulevard. So by adding residential units on that ground floor, which would be along here, Franklin Boulevard up top. By putting residential units on that ground floor, we essentially the need and the requirement for the type of glazing and full height fenestration at the base of the building here was no longer really necessary, nor is it really desirable for a residential apartment. So that is one significant change along with the signage band here. So we maintained the rhythm of the windows on the second and third floor and brought that down. And in order to emphasize a little more prominence and verticality at the ground floor, we're using a different material, using precast panels below the windows there, so it gives that more of a sense of a larger opening along Franklin Boulevard. The second thing is along, the second thing would be the corner. So the corner, we had this articulated clock tower, this focal element that identifies kind of the entrance to the Hamilton Business District.
Excuse me, I'm going to make also your job a little bit easier. Kurt did, in fact, A3, which is the new, I'll hand it out while you're talking, which is the exhibit on
the left.
left that you're looking at. I've had it reduced to an 11 by 17. I will hand it out so it's easier for you to see. And I also have another exhibit that he prepared, which is, I've marked as A4, which shows the Hamilton Street entrance to the residential. So as he is talking, I will hand these out, and I think it'll help you follow along.
Right. Thank you, Peter. So the clock tower is remaining. It's just, it became a little bit shorter, and we pushed it back into the building a little bit because, again, when it was retail component, having, columns, having an overhang, which is more of a retail treatment, we didn't find that to really be necessary and appropriate on the corner, since now no longer will it be used for walking. It's going to be a landscaped corner component. So that tower was shrunk a little bit and kind of pulled back and became more of the massing of the building in a solid volume. The third thing is along Hamilton Street. We had, again, the application considered that this would be retail or office space. And being that we had retail here, we, rightfully so, we extended that articulation of the tall vertical windows around the facade to keep a consistent look. Since then, what appears that it will be occupied as office space. We've tried to make a kind of a compromise in how office space is utilized versus how retail space would be utilized. So we've articulated some of the bays as full-height glazing, and we'll use spandrel panel basically from sill level down. And then there's some other areas on the elevation which have a punched window with that precast panel below the window. So typically in an office space, you'll have perimeter, the desks and workstations and things happen on the perimeter. So we're accommodating for more of a retail look. We've got, a banding, which would be considered, not that it will be used all for signage, but we can call it a signage band above here. So you have the taller windows, the penetrations and fenestration at certain locations. We're going to have on the end piece here where the tenant signage for the space will be identified. That's a 30 square foot signage area for the potential tenant. And that kind of defines the differences, those three differences. In addition, I want to just talk about the visors on top of the bays. These vertical brick pieces are bays for each of the units or as part of the office space. At the top, we had articulated canopies and visors. They were, in the previous application, they were extending over the property line into the right-of-way of the county. So it was asked that we remove those. In order to address that, we've come back and we've provided a a little simpler articulated cap cornice to the bay windows. So so they step in a little bit, and then there's a heavier top to them. And that stays all within the property line. So we've addressed that as well.
Okay, now, a couple other things that are on the plan as a result of the meetings that we had. We have, first of all, a sign or an identification signage at the intersection. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. The building materials are brick, two-color brick, precast for the window heads and the panels below. There'll be a precast band that runs across. So on the intersection of the building, at the corner, we are providing a larger precast panel in which the project name will be carved into this precast panel. The ordinance does not allow for for signage for residential structure, but it's desired because of the prominence and because of the location that we be able to put identification on the corner of the project.
So there will be an identification there, and that will require a variance from this board to allow identification for the building itself as
Right.
opposed to a tenant.
Right, and we're asking for 15 square feet.
Okay, which, if it was a commercial use, you could have a 30-square-foot sign.
Right, and that's what we've
Okay.
identified on here.
The other exhibit that I handed out to the board members, there was in our meetings that we've had with both Hamilton Street, with Mr. Healy and other staff members, a concern that there be more of a focus of this building for the residential component along Hamilton Street. And based on what I've handed out to the board members as a 4, and you can point out where the entrance is, you've articulated it there, but can you indicate to the board how entrance is going to be gained to the building for the residential tenants?
Yes, primarily the parking and access will be in the backside, on the parking lot side of the building. So there is a entrance off of that parking lot. That entrance also leads out to outdoor communal space for the residents. The lobby as it is planned connects through, and we've proposed a front entrance piece on Hamilton Street, which is in that perspective sketch that we've provided. So that will also allow residents to not have to walk around the building, be able to get easy access to Hamilton Street. It gives multiple alternatives and ways for tenant residents to be able to enter or exit the building. It also provides more of a identity and front door to the project, which it rightfully needs.
Okay, and now, in developing A3, which is at least more than the third iteration of this plan, you have incorporated the concerns that were raised, comments that were raised by Mr. Healy in his report, which was dated August 31st, 2012. You've also had the opportunity to review basically the 3 reports that were generated by the Hamilton Street Business District, the last one being dated today, is that correct?
Yes.
And in your opinion, have you addressed their comments and concerns with the revisions that have been made?
I believe that we have. I believe, yes, that we've satisfied them.
Okay, now,
Mr. Lanford, let me just speak to that real quickly. I agree.
okay,
And as Mr. Lanford indicated, there was a series of meetings with staff and with the Hamilton Street Group, a meeting on site. This is at least the third or fourth iteration. It was an attractive building from the start, but there were some details that we wanted them to work on. They've been very responsive to making those changes. and the architect just went through all of those. The last comment dated today from Hamilton Street Business District suggests one last tweak, which was changing one of the doors to a double door, so it's a little bit more suggestive of a retail entrance. And the Exhibit A3 that they've submitted tonight does just that. So, that was, I think, kind of the last little tweak on the facade that we were looking for. And it looks like the applicant's done everything with respect to the facade that we've asked them to do.
Okay, and just one last thing, just for the record. You're familiar with the Hamilton Street Business District Ordinance and the design standards?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and in your opinion, have you now attempted to comply with as many of them that apply to an office building and residential use? Obviously, there's commercial standards too, but have you tried to incorporate the spirit and the intent of that ordinance in A3?
Yes, I believe that the proposed facade elevations and the articulation of the building are in the spirit and follow the intent of that ordinance.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions of this witness.
Any questions from the board of this witness? Yeah, Bob.
I have a question. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Jim,
Go
I
first.
saw Bob
Go
first.
ahead.
Okay.
Well, as you will remember at the preliminary, I had a problem in the interior. In the first iteration, there were no bathroom facilities off of the common room.
I apologize.
There is now, I believe, a single lavatory, and whereas that may be sufficient, I don't think that that's ideal. And if there could be a men's room and a woman and a ladies' room, I would be quite happy.
Actually, we do have in our latest, and rather than, if you want to see it, I'll give it to you, but our latest plan shows both a men's and ladies' room. If we want to have just one of them marked as I've got engineering plans marked already, so we'll mark it as A8, A9.
You've made me very happy.
Yeah, we did do that, and we should have covered that also.
Okay.
Jim,
Here we've got two
then
bathrooms.
Ted.
Oh, tell us,
And then the
Henry.
kitchen.
Go ahead, Ted.
Ted, go ahead.
Could I get a
All right,
copy of
I'm just a
Pat-
little bit confused by the rendering along Hamilton Street. Just as you, it looks to me like to get to the office space is one entrance, yes?
That's correct.
Okay, that's in kind
And
of a
that
tower
is,
that
it's
goes
actually on the side.
upstairs. Pardon?
The-
Look at the floor plans. I'm trying to match them up to your elevations. Are these now different? Has
No,
this
the-
changed based on this?
The plan is 95% the same. And I'll explain
Go ahead.
I'll explain the difference. The difference is, the double door was added to this egress
Is
stair.
that on this rendering?
That's, yes, and that would be,
Where would that be?
that's right here.
Okay, all right, I
Right.
had a look. Yeah, all right,
So,
that-
yeah,
that
so,
says storefront.
so from here over is where the bump out is on the
Yeah,
building.
yeah, I see that.
And then the second difference is the entrance, the front entrance along Hamilton is not shown on here, but that's what this piece, this element here,
Okay.
and that element right there.
So to go into the office,
The office is accessed from the side.
and what's this for?
That's a fire stair, egress
Okay,
stair.
and where are the toilet facilities for the office space?
That is, it's a tenant, that's a fit out, so whatever,
Where you'll put the plumbing?
whoever
That's
yeah.
the roughing end.
Well, we don't know what what that layout's going to be, but that would be basically under separate permit.
No,
So,
I'm just saying, if you build a building, you don't have a tenant for the office space. You gotta do something. You gotta put in roughing for toilets or. do
I think the intention is that before the floor is poured, that
all
they
right.
will know where the plumbing is going to be located.
All right, good. I was just having confused, but this,
Yeah,
looking at that and saying,
Right.
didn't match up.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and since the elevation is flat, it's a little hard.
Well, no,
to
I can see
step
the
back.
indents and all that, but I just was looking for because everything here is blue. You were talking about the precast panels below the windows.
Right.
Then when you get over here,
Yeah, that's going to be glass, but it's,
yeah, but it's glass to the floor almost.
yeah, but it's a spandrel, which is a
Yeah,
painted.
no, it's like a storefront with a spandrel.
Yeah, but you just can't see
Like we
through
have out
it.
here in our
Right.
atrium. Exactly.
Correct.
I know
That's
what
correct.
it is, okay, all right. Won't belabor the point, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ted?
I wanted to really take the comments of the Hamilton Street Business District and of Mr. Healy a little farther. And the reason for having a tenant's entrance from Hamilton Street, and I would argue also an office entrance from Hamilton Street, is to encourage both the residential tenants and the office workers to go out as pedestrians and use Hamilton Street business facilities, particularly what is catty corner across the intersection of Franklin Boulevard and Hamilton Street. And, you know, an access from the end of the building, okay, office workers could go on down that direction on Hamilton Street, but we really, I think, want this to strengthen the Hamilton Street businesses. Now, and you do now have a tenant's entrance from Hamilton Street. That is a good step. You have architecturally an entrance to the office from Hamilton Street, but apparently you still intended only to be an emergency exit. I would rather see it as an entrance that, let's say it could be key carded or something, so that only, and no sign on it, so that only employees would go in and out through it, but that it is a working exit for pedestrians to Hamilton Street to encourage the employees in the office building to use Hamilton Street business.
At this juncture, and quite frankly, the tenant sort of drives how they want access to the building. I mean, we can discuss that as a possibility, but
The one concern is the cross-population or pollination of that egress stair, which is for the use of the really for just egress of the residential building, in, you know, mixing that with other uses.
But I think what Dr. Chase is wondering is that door that we're putting on Hamilton Street, can it be made to be a usable door as an entrance and an exit?
Can you show the location of the office entrance and its relation to Hamilton Street?
Yes. I'm just going to put this up.
Maybe show, maybe actually, I think the exhibit on the ground there might be a little bit better. The one that shows the site
The
plan?
site plan, yes, we can use the site plan.
And I've already pre-marked that exhibit so that when Mr. Ford testifies, that's on A5.
Okay. So the office entrance is here on the side, and then there's the improvements and the entrance here, or exit from the stair with the double doors, is located right here.
And there is a sidewalk that connects that entrance right to Hamilton Street, so if any of the employees
Right.
want to get to Hamilton Street, they can get to Hamilton Street.
Okay, so the real entrance and the Hamilton Street exit are really not that far apart, but as I said, I mean, with modern security arrangements, it can be made so that only employees with a key card can go in and out, and as you say, this may be a question of what the tenants want. So if you have tenants, if you can, it's essentially absolutely minimal as an architectural difference. I'd just like you to be able to offer them that option.
I think it's the other way around, Dr. Chase. If the tenant wants that to be a fully functional entrance and exit, we would be glad to do it. And I think that if you want to make, that suggestion and make it part of the record. We will gladly, in discussing it with the tenant, discuss it. And we do have a tenant, so it's not that we're building a space in a vacuum.
I figured you had.
Yes.
Well, maybe, perhaps, I can
You
understand,
have a tenant,
Yes.
so you know where the toilets are going.
Well,
I mean, no, either it's one way or the other way. And you got a big space there, you got one tenant for that whole space.
yes,
That's it.
yes,
And you already know who it is.
yes. But they haven't given us a floor plan to,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So it isn't a matter of leaving the floor out, it isn't a matter of we're gonna build it later. You know that, you're gonna have a tenant in there, and you know who it is. They haven't given you the requirements yet. But
Correct.
you got a deal,
I,
and they're
Yes.
taking all the space.
Correct,
So you don't need to put entrances out on Hamilton Street.
correct.
Okay, because that was gonna be my next question. How many tenants do you foresee in the
Right.
space?
It-
And how are they gonna get to it?
Right.
There are multiple tenants.
We have one user for the entire space, and quite frankly, Mr. Pettit, it was designed that, if they, at some point in time in the future, move out, I mean, we can break it up with street front entrances on Hamilton Street and break that space up
All right.
for commercial
All right,
users.
so you can do that.
It can be done.
That's where your storefront glazing is, so that can come out?
yeah,
Is that what
the
reason
floor,
that is?
the
Now it
floor
makes
and the
sense.
sidewalk
Okay.
are the same.
Now it makes sense. I was wondering why you're going from this to that, and then storefront here and not there, and windows there, and panels below. Okay.
Understood.
getting back
Makes
to
sense.
Councilman Chase's comment, I can understand the issue of not wanting cross-pollination, is that the right word? Between the tenants, the office, and the residential. Perhaps you could look into, maybe there would be a separate entrance, emergency egress, card-controlled entrance just from the office.
Oh, I thought
Looked
that's
like-
what we were talking
Yeah.
Well, no,
about.
but I thought you were talking about the one that they have in the emergency
No.
exit.
Uh,
You're asking
My
for a second one?
understanding was that what the Hamilton Street, the Hamilton Street Business District, they say one specific suggestion would be to install a double door in place of the emergency exit on Hamilton Street opposite Millstone Road.
Which we did.
And that's the one,
And-
that's the one.
Yeah,
What I'm suggesting is.
but that's separate from the residence entrance to
No,
the
no,
residence
that is-
lobby.
That
that's-
is the same tower.
Yeah, this is, based on our conversations with them, that's what they recommended,
So it's
what
more
they would have liked to
suggestive.
see.
It's actually, it doesn't provide access to the office component. It provides an entrance to the
To this-
the stairs
Stair.
for but it's a double door. It looks like retail. My suggestion is, your comment was actually have a real access from the office to the street if there was an opportunity for a second double door along Hamilton Street in that tenant space. I mean, card controlled.
You mean that the double door with the emergency access was really communicating only with the second floor for the residential tenants?
Yes,
That's correct.
and it was emergency
Don't-
access for the downstairs tenants. For the office people, there was a one exit door to go out that way if they had to in a fire.
Well, again, you can have a door with card access on the second floor, or if it's an emergency exit for the residential tenants, that can be a door that is strictly one way. That is, that you can go out, but you can't come in. And then on the first floor, you would have a door that is, say, key carded, a door into the office space that was key carded for office people.
Well, I guess maybe the way to approach it would be if it's the desire of the tenant to want to have access into there, we could accommodate that, but,
Make a lobby.
Yeah,
um,
well,
Make a
just,
lobby. Make
just
a lobby, move that staircase back a little bit, put a double door in the front,
that,
and make a lobby, so they can be either side.
yeah, it-
Then people can come down to the lobby and go out.
yeah.
If that's what the tenant wants,
Oh,
would be,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but that's
It
what
doesn't-
the business district wants.
It doesn't require anything like a full lobby. It's just sort of a little space with a back door.
Okay.
But if it encourages office tenants to go out as pedestrians onto Hamilton Street, that is a good thing for Hamilton Street business. So that's my point. So if this is going to be in the record of the meeting, not in the resolution, But it's something I just ask that you bring up with the office tenant as a possibility and why we suggest it as a possibility.
That we would be happy to do, Dr. Chase. And just very briefly to answer Mr. Pettit's question, when we met with the Hamilton Street people, they were not so much concerned about getting people out to Hamilton Street. They were more concerned with the aesthetics of having a door there, not so much that it be functional.
Let the office people come out so they can walk across the street.
Well, not yet, but that wasn't their real intent.
Well, I don't know, actually, I think.
Should have been.
No, I don't think that's, I think they certainly want people coming out of the office, but I think they didn't have a concern, considering that the location, the office lobby, really isn't that far from Hamilton
Right
Street.
around the
There's a
corner.
sidewalk
That's
connecting.
fine.
They were basically happy with it.
all right,
I think
all right.
that's,
Then it's acceptable.
certainly getting people from the office to use Hamilton Street is of utmost importance.
Right, but in this case, they knew where the entrance
Yes.
was, which was right there anyway.
Yes.
And the floor plan doesn't show a double door there anyway.
That was just added today because of the request that we got today.
They'll have to change,
So, maybe we should have this thing on a screen. and just-
no, they'll obviously have to change the floor plan. to match.
Yeah, again,
Okay, all right.
you know,
I understand.
we try to give you the latest and greatest, but when we get a report on October 17th, we changed the architectural,
Yeah.
the elevations. We didn't get a chance to change the floor plans yet.
No, that's okay. You already got an approval once for this. Now we're back again.
Yeah.
That was in July, right?
August.
Oh, August. Okay. September, October. Okay.
Any other questions for the architect? If not,
All right. Mr. Ford?
engineer?
So I'm looking at the right place. Again.
Want to raise your right hand, sir? You
Certainly.
solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth.
Yes. Michael Ford, F-O-R-D. Licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, employed by Van Cleef Engineering.
You've previously testified.
I've
before this board.
appeared before this board on numerous occasions.
All right.
Very numerous.
Thank you.
Members of the board and Mr. Ford, again, what I tried to do is take the exhibit that we submitted last year, which was our site plan, and marked it as A5. I did mark A6 as the colored rendering of the plan that we submitted for the amendment. We're going to skip over that because we then, as a result of meetings, have developed A7. So I have for Mr. Ford, I'm going to ask him to basically go from A5 to A7 and show the changes that we have made to the site based on the staff comments that were generated in conjunction with our original application, and then also all of the meetings that we've had for the last couple of months.
Mr. Lanford, before you do that, I have a package of drawings created by Van Cleef Engineering. Are they the plans we're talking about, or has it been a change?
A
Well, I mean, I have a whole package of drawings by,
A7 shows some changes to what you have based on the meetings that we've had, yes.
okay, so the plan in here is not the plan we're looking at.
It's pretty close, but there are some modifications.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
want to ask stupid questions because I'm,
Certainly.
looking at the wrong book.
Well, if they do their job, they're going to explain to you in very gory detail, I assume, what
We
what the differences are between what we have, what we all have, and what the changes.
I know that, but see, when you get the packet, you study it, you read it, you got your lined up your question, you come to a meeting, now it's not that, it's something else.
Right.
Then why have packets? Okay.
Busy little bees
Yeah, but they've had,
meeting with township people in the interim.
then have the meeting postponed until we're ready to get the proper drawings. Go ahead.
Okay.
We do this all the time.
Here's, I think you'll see the changes are subtle and small, but they, just like we just went through with the architecturals, changing elements of the facade are subtle but make a difference, and a distinct difference. First, with relating it back to the August 2011 plan, which is the rendering on the left, and this rendering is made so you can see the entire project. We're limited by the size sheet that we submit for a site plan to 24 by 36 inch sheets, so off-site parking in the main site or on two different sets of plans or two different sheets within your set of plans. But for illustrative purposes, you'll see here we have the main site and the off-site parking is in the upper right-hand corner. Hamilton Street's at the bottom of the page, Franklin Boulevard's to the left. The original plan had maintained the existing access driveway to Hamilton. There is an existing access driveway off of Hamilton today for the site. There's also an existing driveway off of Norma, which would be maintained. And there were two access driveways to Martin Street that were eliminated as part of the proposal that was approved by the board in August of 2011. What's changed since then regarding this access is that the access off of Hamilton has been eliminated. And the access to Norma has been maintained, and one of the two existing access driveways to Martin has been maintained. I think this, from an engineering standpoint and traffic, the county, which has jurisdiction over Hamilton Street and Franklin Boulevard, they're both county right-of-ways, really like that. From Hamilton Street Business District, I think that also is a major plus because now as far as pedestrian traffic along Hamilton, they no longer have to traverse through a driveway intersection. And the sidewalk gap that is created by that elimination of that driveway will be filled in. So the streetscape improves from that perspective. So now we have an access to Martin. It's one of the two existing access driveways, and the parking lot is essentially the same. You'll see the same configuration, but one difference is that this parking lot scenario had 130 parking spaces, whereas the new parking lot with the driveway to Martin allowed us to increase the on-site parking count to 140 spaces. So we increased the on-site parking by 10 spaces. The off-site parking, we came in with a concept of how that would be laid out with no design details. As has been stated, we need it for the density for the residential units, but not so for the parking. But we have, in contrast to the old plan, provided a detailed plan for the reconfiguration of that existing parking lot. And you'll see on the illustration of the August 2011 plan, that's the existing parking lot as it sits today. It's a herringbone or angled parking scenario with 4 driveways access, all one way, straight through it. The reconfigured and what would be reconstructed, if they were to need the parking, we don't need it, but it would be banked parking, but it would be one driveway to both of the roads, that is Martin and Lewis Street. And as far as while I'm on the banked parking, one of the staff comments we received is that, okay, you're proposing this parking layout with 140 on-site, another 40 off-site, that's well in excess of what you need. You have all the residential parking on-site. You have more than adequate parking for the office and residential shared on-site. That's in the traffic report. We want to bank the off-site parking, but unlike a raw, undeveloped site, we have an existing parking lot that is unsightly. And what has already been stated in our introduction is that what we would do is remove the existing pavement, turn this into lawn, and then remove the existing driveway accesses. So clean up the site.
Okay.
Yep. Peter has some questions.
All right. Also, in the original plan, we did not submit a lighting detail for the new lot. We're going to obviously provide all of the lighting, all of the normal requirements of a parking lot. Should we ever have to build it, then we just go in and build it because it will have all of the approvals and will comply with all of the township standards. Is that correct?
That's correct, and this is actually detailed out, but for the lighting on the current plan, there was a suggestion in the engineer's report that the pavement be totally reconstructed. We'll change the design construction plans to show that that would be totally reconstructed if and when the off-site parking were ever built, and also provide a detailed lighting plan. And I'll tell you, in our meetings with the staff, we made it clear that we didn't want to build that parking. We thought we'd never need to build that parking, and we asked for some relief on providing all the design details at this juncture, basically to save a little design engineering money. But the staff felt strongly that we really wanted to have, they wanted to have all those design details at this juncture rather than wait until the time that that may or may not be built. So we will comply with that request to provide all those design details for a parking lot we believe will never be built.
Okay. Now,
Maintaining the grass and everything.
we own the property, we would be responsible to maintain it. And as I indicated in my opening, our original plan showed a sidewalk along Martin. We are still showing it on our new plan. However, we are asking the board to give us relief from building that sidewalk at this point in time, and only to build it once we build the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That would be this sidewalk here and some improvements to the sidewalk at the intersection. If we don't build the parking lot, we don't need the pedestrian access. We would like to bank the sidewalk with the parking.
Okay. Now, with respect to a few of the other changes, when the board heard this application in July, one of the board members, and quite frankly, I can't recollect which one, had suggested that we consider putting a fence along Martin Street. When we submitted our revised plans, based on that staff comment, showed a fence along Martin Street, correct?
That's correct.
And then when we started having meetings with the township staff and went out to the site with the township staff, our plan today takes the fence back out of the plan, correct?
That's correct.
And can you indicate to the board what the discussion was and what we are proposing as buffering and landscaping along Martin Street?
Okay. Yes, there's the exhibit on the floor, the July 2012 plan as submitted. It shows the street trees along... A6. It shows the street trees along Martin. It shows some evergreens around the trash enclosure, but in the interim, behind the street trees was the fence. That was one of the conditions of the preliminary approval. It's a white vinyl fence. In reviewing that July 2012 submittal, there was comments from your staff that that fence for that length may have a stark appearance. So what was discussed, and we agreed to comply with this request, is to provide not a fence, but evergreen shrubs along that entire parking, in addition to the street trees that would be placed there.
And that would provide the year-round screening from the parking lot to the I think there's 3 residences or 4 residences on the other side of the street, correct?
Yes.
And the present condition, is there any present buffering or screening of the existing parking lot when it was used as a bank, the bank parking lot, to those residences?
No.
So
No, that area is
anything,
devoid of any.
the new evergreen screening will be a major enhancement from what was there previously, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to the issues that are still sort of hanging out there, as I indicated earlier, there were 2 issues, and we'll lay them out to the board in discussing them now, and I'll also have Ms. Lockett discuss them as a representative of the applicant. Actually, 3 issues. One issue is the comment from Mr. Hauk, which is a new comment about relocating our driveway on Martin Street.
Right. This would be on A7.
Okay.
Can everybody see that clearly from where they're at? Okay. What was suggested was the access driveway at Norma be shifted to the east to line up with the driveway that runs across the front of the drop-off area. And I have another illustration, maybe if I could describe that.
And I've marked it, I think it should be back on the ground.
Okay.
Somewhere. It's behind A6, I think. Or is it on top?
No. Here.
Nope.
No, it isn't.
Take that off.
Yeah, leave it down. Leave it down. Okay. This is an enlargement of that area The Martin driveway, it's oriented the same way as the site plan in the exhibits. Martin at the top of the plan, Hamilton at the bottom, the proposed building in gray. We have the access driveway in the current plan in the same location as the existing access driveway to Martin. As I said, there's two existing driveways to Martin today, one here and one some distance to the east. That driveway would be eliminated, but this existing driveway would be maintained. It's offset from the driveway directly opposite our site on Martin, which is an office complex. It's offset center to center of those two driveways, 65 feet. There are a few significant reasons why we believe that the current configuration is the best planning configuration, and there's no engineering detriment to maintaining that configuration. First, you see the green outdoor common area right by the main entrance to the residential is highlighted. It's highlighted, outlined in green. The blue arrows represent what we believe would be the predominant pedestrian traffic back and forth from the parking lot to the main access door to the residential. And then the red highlighted pink arrow is what we believe would be the predominant move for vehicular traffic in and out of the site, because they enter the site and oriented into the parking lot rather than up across the main access route for pedestrians. And you can see that that orientation helps to separate those two elements, the pedestrians and the cars. We feel that's a safer orientation. Another element, as you can see highlighted in yellow, is the driveway or the dumpster area location as shown on the current plan. And now I'll move to the suggested alternate alignment of that driveway.
And Mr. Ford, the suggested alternate is the request of the engineering department that we relocate that driveway, correct?
Right.
That's not our suggested alternate.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. In the August, let's give the date of the report. The August 22nd, 2012 report from the engineering office had some 48 comments. We'll comply with each and every one of those 48 comments, but for one, and that's item 43, which is the suggestion to relocate the driveway so that it, off of Martin, so that it goes directly toward the main drop-off area and driveway in front of the door to the residence. As you can see in this illustration, the blue pedestrian predominant traffic route is highlighted the same way. The green outdoor common area is highlighted the same way. But what we believe would be the predominant traffic movement by people entering the site, that is, go as far into the site and as close to the front door as you can, would be taking the traffic in an area where it would have more of a potential to have that repeated conflict with the pedestrians. The other element is by moving the driveway over, obviously the trash enclosure right now is opposite that driveway. That would be in the way of the new driveway or the alternate suggestion for the driveway location. Therefore, the dumpster would likely be moved to this location so that it could be accessed from the parking in this direction, but that puts the dumpster and the outdoor common area much closer together in the same, basically, lawn area, as opposed to on opposite sides of the driveway. So all the residents and the outdoor common area would be much closer to that dumpster. Lastly, by shifting the driveway over, but not completely opposite the existing driveway on the other side of Martin, you have that offset between the two driveways reduced from 65 feet, which is an existing condition and has functioned that way, to 25 feet. And obviously that would present an issue which the traffic consultant can get into greater detail about, but it puts more of a jeopardy of those two driveways having turning movements in conflict with each other.
So that is one issue that we still have to resolve with the board, and we're asking for relief of the request of the condition of the engineering department to relocate.
That's correct.
Relocate the driveway.
We don't want to, we would rather not have to comply with item 43 and maintain the existing configuration for that driveway.
Okay, and we will present some additional testimony as to why we don't want to do that, correct, Mr. Ford?
Correct.
The second issue that is still outstanding in Hamilton Street Business District, and you were present when we did the walk of the site with Hamilton Street. You were present when we did the walk of the site with the township staff and heard their concerns, correct?
Yes, I was.
There was an issue of the lighting and along Hamilton Street.
Right.
Can you indicate to the board and go back to exhibit, I guess it probably would be better on A7, what the existing lighting is along Hamilton Street, and also what the proposed additional lighting that we are putting on along Hamilton Street for our parking lot?
Okay. First, the parking lot is essentially, the on-site parking lot is essentially in the same location it is now, but the light fixtures would be changed out and upgraded, and there would be 3 light fixtures along the southerly edge of the parking lot. Along Hamilton Street today, there's the existing sidewalk, the street trees, and there are utility poles, 4 of them, which have the Hamilton Street type, as I understand it, business district light. It's like a globe type light. There's also another utility pole on on Franklin, which has one of those Hamilton Street globe type mounted lights, as well as another utility pole at the intersection of Martin and Franklin, which has a similar light. So along our frontage here, those existing lights are there, and we're not proposing to change them or add any lighting within the county right away.
Okay, and all of those lights that were installed, I assume, by the Hamilton Street Business District with grant monies are in the county right-of-way, is that correct?
That's correct.
And are those lights that you testified to, are they on decorative poles, or are they on basically what are the wooden, what we commonly call telephone poles?
They're on telephone poles.
Okay, so none of them have their own light stanchions?
That's correct.
Okay. And how many of those light fixtures currently exist along Hamilton Street?
4.
Okay. In addition to those lights, you indicated we are going to put 3 new lights on our property that are primarily going to illuminate the parking lot. Is that correct?
That's their function, correct.
Okay, but also because of their proximity to Hamilton Street, they're going to provide additional illumination along Hamilton Street. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's, the same could be said for the lighting that's on the south side of Hamilton at the intersection of Hamilton and Millstone Road. There's a utility pole with one of those Cobra headlights mounted on it, as well as in the vicinity of the intersection where the gas station exists.
Now, you've had an opportunity to review the report that was issued today from the Hamilton Street Business District, and item number 3 indicates that they had no objection to the light fixtures that we are proposing on-site. However, the business district asked the applicant's representatives at last week's meeting for the installation of at least 2 freestanding light poles similar to other business district streetscape light poles along Hamilton Street between the curb and the sidewalk in order to improve lighting for pedestrians. They indicated, and I'll skip them one sentence because that goes over to Franklin Boulevard, that we would consider this request and that they would ask that the planning board make this a condition of approval. Did you, in fact, since our meeting of last week, look at the possibility of attempting to try to install additional light poles, decorative light poles along Hamilton Street?
Yes, and we've had an opportunity to discuss it with the applicant as well. We're not proposing, we haven't changed our position as in our proposal, no new lighting in Hamilton. The suggested location for those poles between the sidewalk and curb is a small grass area where all the street trees are now. So the effectiveness of those lights between street trees would be somewhat reduced because of the street trees. What we will have is substantial portion of our frontage is where the proposed new building is, and there'll be building-mounted lights that'll help illuminate and aid and improve the existing lighting that's already there, as well as what we've just said about the parking lot area on the easterly portion of the site.
And as you indicated in your testimony, there are currently 4 of the decorative lights on wooden poles along the frontage of our property on Hamilton Street. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And in your opinion, is there any way to stick to, and I shouldn't use the word stick, is there any way to place 2 others in there to appropriately space them to either grant better illumination or or for aesthetics, to try to meet their request?
I think what we're achieving is the same result, but in a different fashion. It would be more effective to let the parking lot lighting and the building-mounted lighting add that additional illumination rather than adding more poles in that 4-foot grass area where they wouldn't be as effective.
Okay. The last,
Peter, before we move off the lighting, what about their request for Franklin Boulevard poles, light poles?
right now,
What do you have on Franklin Boulevard?
We have the one pole mounted fixture, middle of the site, and then one at the intersection, and then the intersection itself is illuminated. So right now, there is lighting in that area, and we're not proposing to change that.
and for lighting purposes or illumination purposes, and you were out there again tonight actually to look at it again, do you feel that there's need for additional illumination along that stretch of Franklin Boulevard? Or is that area well lit at this time?
No, actually, and I believe it's well lit, and there's actually lights. Those, if the effect is the architectural view, those lights are not only along our frontage and along Franklin, but they go north of our site and are on both sides of Franklin. So maybe adding lights in there would be inconsistent with the lighting that's already been provided in that area that I understand is the light fixture of the Hamilton Street Business District.
See, when I read this request from them, I have a feeling, though not being at these meetings, it's just a feeling, that it has more to do with streetscape than it actually does a light. Because they're asking for pole-mounted lights. It sounds to me like a streetscape issue, not an actual lighting issue, because as you explained, there is a fair amount of lighting there. And so, you know, in that spirit, I guess there's probably no, like you just pointed out, there's no need or even really maybe desire to add light per se. What about any decorative treatment to the lights that exist to make it more consistent with the streetscape that they're probably looking for?
Such as taking them off the wooden poles and putting them on other poles?
Well, there's that, or there's making what's on the wooden poles look more attractive.
That's their lights.
Yeah,
What's on the wooden poles are their lights that were put there with grant monies, and they meet their standards. It's their lighting.
Oh,
They
Yeah.
they like the lighting, they want a few more.
Yeah, and
Right.
so it is sort of streets, both a combination of streetscape and actual light.
I get the sense that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But maybe I could tell you what we have agreed to do and what we've done along Hamilton as far as streetscape with the shoulder course,
yeah,
the additional benches. Want me to point that out?
yeah, I think that maybe goes to the overall picture of the streetscape, because there are other issues that they've asked for, which, again, we've agreed to do a good portion of, and some of it we're asking for some relief. So perhaps, let's talk about that also.
I guess one other question is back to the Hamilton Street side. You know, you're saying that the building-mounted lighting is going to suffice for some of to enhance the street lighting. To that point, what's your building-mounted lighting supposed to be? Is it going to be like a gooseneck, or is it just going to be a normal downward shielded light going?
Let the architect speak to that.
For the signage, it's going to be gooseneck lighting,
Okay.
and on the building-mounted lighting is going to be a down light, like a scoop light that illuminates downward. So we don't really not interested in illuminating the sky or out the street,
Right.
but it will illuminate down and out.
Yeah, no, that
the
answers
walking-
my
the
question,
walk-
because, gooseneck lighting is gonna light your sign, but it's not gonna probably do much for the street, but if you have a shielded, downward-facing light on the building, it should help to illuminate the street. 'Cause, I agree with you, I'd rather not have lights amongst the trees, I'd rather not sacrifice landscaping for lighting, in that particular area, from what it sounds like.
And we could look at, if, with Mr. Healy, if maybe we put an additional light on the building, at least on the Hamilton Street side, if there's a need for some additional illumination, we can do that. We would rather not do it on the Franklin Boulevard site, because those are residences on that first floor, so I don't think you want to put lighting outside their windows, so I think that has to be treated differently. But if for illumination purposes, another wall-mounted light on the building can be, is necessary, we would gladly do that. But I think, their lighting is there, and they placed it there. I think to just throw two more light poles in for the sake of putting them in, especially in the middle of the trees, doesn't give you anything. And again, they've asked us to look at it. We did look at it carefully. We went back out at the site. Quite frankly, when we went there, it was the middle of the day, and, it was a bright sunny day. So, again, the effect of the lighting, we didn't have a sense of it until we were able to get out there in the evening and look at it. But, we feel that there's fairly adequate illumination now. Actually, the building is dark now, too. You also are going to get illumination when people are living in the apartments and there's lights on, so there's going to be additional illumination that gets provided. And I don't think you want to over-illuminate either, but I think what we've provided, and we'll gladly look at it and put more building-mounted lighting on there if necessary.
Well, your tenant is commercial too, right? Not retail.
On the Hamilton Street side, it's an office, it's a non-residential tenant.
So I would assume that you're talking about like a 9 to 5 thing.
But you still have apartments above, which will still shed some lighting.
I understand
Right.
that. I'm just contrasting the fact that if it was retail and would go into the evening,
Right.
right? That's different than an office use.
Absolutely correct, yeah.
With
All right.
regard to your parking lot, there's a much better use for it than just putting in grass that's going to require maintenance, and it's going to collect trash being blown there and become an eyesore. By name in Williams Park, there's a community gardens where there are plots for use by the tenants. Putting in garden plots there so that the tenants, the seniors in your building, can use them would really be environmentally friendly, and it would be nice to get the seniors out in the good weather and give them something to do. It would take very little on your part. It would require a fence and a gate with a lock and a water line to it for use by the gardeners.
Bernie, this sounds like a good idea, and if it was land banked, there's no reason why they couldn't do that if they wanted to.
They just have to understand that, if we're ever to become a parking lot, there goes their garden.
Yes, of course.
But,
But
yeah.
meanwhile, the land is being put to
I
practical
think
use.
that's a great idea. You can't put trees there really, because
No.
again, if it's going to be used as a parking lot, you wouldn't want to rip that out, but this would be a very beneficial use in the meantime. And if you
For your
really
own
don't
tenants.
think it's ever going to be used as that would, of course, then reopen the discussion of the need for pedestrian access over to that site on Martin Street, of course, because you're going to have to do that in some ways, get them over to that garden.
Well, they could, if it's going to be limited use as opposed to daily commuters, so to speak, in the wintertime, it's not going to be used at all. There is a sidewalk on Norma, and they can come right through the parking lot onto Norma, But we can look at that, as an amenity for the tenants and try to turn it into a garden.
Wonderful.
We've actually already thought of that, and there is a small area on-site by the community area, by the main entrance, that we've designated for, people with a green thumb.
Good.
Just, it's much smaller.
Getting away from green, can we talk about sidewalks and soldier courses? Because that's probably our last issue. And can you explain, first of all, if the board members are unaware, what a soldier course is and what the Hamilton Street Business District plan calls for?
Okay, yes, the On each side of a concrete sidewalk would be a row of brick. That's what we're referring to as a soldier course of brick, and that would be on each side of the sidewalk. And actually, at our last site visit with the business district representatives, we actually went from our site and took a ride down to New Millennium Bank and Sophie's. That sidewalk actually has this treatment in place.
Say brick pavers, they're laid flat?
Yes.
Not standing up like soldier course. A soldier course on masonry is standing vertical.
Yeah, no, these are just laid flat.
Right, they're laying
Brick
flat.
pavers.
They're not a trip hazard, yeah.
No, they're brick pavers.
Correct.
Okay. I wouldn't call them soldier courses.
That's what they call it, so,
Is that Hamilton Street?
yes.
Yeah. So we've agreed to do that treatment along the existing sidewalk on Hamilton Street. We've also agreed to place 2 new benches by that feature that is the residential aspect, or residential access from Hamilton Street that the architect pointed out earlier, and that's the perspective view you looked at. And there are also existing 2 benches that would be maintained along our frontage.
Okay, now, according to the Hamilton Street Business District plan, the plan calls for continuing that soldier course on Norma all the way to our driveway entrance on Norma. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we are requesting a waiver to provide that soldier course along Norma.
That's correct. And the district people have not requested it.
And
They've
they,
agreed with that.
correct. Now, on Franklin Boulevard, at the present time, there is a sidewalk in place. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that sidewalk goes all the way from the curb to basically the area where you're showing as the new plantings and new grass area.
Right. There's a sidewalk existing along Franklin Boulevard. It doesn't have that green area that you typically see between the sidewalk and the curb. The sidewalk goes right up to the curb, and that's within the county right away.
Okay.
And we're not proposing the brick pavers along the edge of the sidewalk in that location.
Okay, and that was one of their requests, that they would like to see it continued along Franklin Boulevard, correct?
Right.
And we are requesting not to do it, to leave the sidewalk as it currently exists on Franklin Boulevard.
Right.
Okay. So those are the open issues. Now, you did reference Mr. Houck's report, which had 40-some engineering comments. You agree to comply with all of them except the one open item with respect to the driveway. Is that correct?
Right, and some of them will become non-applicable depending on the board's decision, and also as a result of some of our staff meetings. For example, we had a designated area on site with signage for reserved parking for the office. We don't need to do that. We've eliminated it from the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's also a report from John House about additional fire hydrants. We agree to comply with all of those reports.
That's correct.
Okay, and there are some limited engineering comments raised in Mr. Healy's report, and you have agreed to, either by virtue of the revised plan or in discussions, agreed to comply with all of those comments.
That's correct.
Okay.
Let's just, we need to try to understand the pavers again on for Franklin Boulevard. So why don't you want to do those again? I'm just not seeing what the problem is.
Well, we can have the developer talk about what the problem is, and again, I would like to finish, and my
Okay.
other 2 witnesses won't be long, and then we can
No,
sort of...
no, that's fine. I just figured if it was a last issue, we could just resolve it.
It,
The first two, sort of.
well, there's 2 parts to the problem. One is, obviously, we would have to rip up a good portion of the existing sidewalk on one side. It's not just a matter of putting them in grass, since the sidewalk goes all the way out to the curb. That's an engineering concern, but there are other concerns also. So if you will indulge me to present about 10 or 15 more minutes of testimony on these open issues, and then we can have a discussion on them.
Okay.
Okay. Wait a minute, Mr. Ford, the board may have...
Oh, does the board have any more questions for Mr. Ford? And just keep in mind, everybody's already sworn in, so if you think of something as we discuss it later, you can
Are
always...
you going to put on traffic testimony, Peter?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'll wait for that, and then I'll talk to Mr. Ford maybe.
Okay. Ms. Lockett?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Lockett, by whom are you employed?
Genesis Companies.
And what's Genesis Company's relationship to this project?
We are the developer of the project.
Okay. And as I indicated in my opening statement, the project consists of 64 units. All of them are affordable. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how is this project funded?
It's a publicly funded project through the state of New Jersey, as well as now the city, or the Franklin Township.
Okay, so you have gotten funding for the project from the state?
We have.
Okay, and also Franklin Township has provided you affordable housing monies to construct this project?
A commitment.
A commitment. You
Yes.
haven't gotten it yet?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's go over a couple of things. When we were here the last time, we talked about the building being a fully either office commercial building on the first floor and apartments or residences on the second and third floors. We've revised the plan to eliminate some of the commercial uses or the commercial uses on the first floor along Franklin Boulevard. Why did you do that?
We actually looked for tenants for that space and really weren't able to find anyone to go into that space.
And in your opinion, that space would be very difficult to market as retail space?
Has been difficult to market,
Okay.
yes.
And you do have, in fact, a tenant for the proposed office space that we're showing on the plan?
We do.
Okay. Now, the issues of the sidewalk. First of all, when we developed the plan last year and submitted it, and you designed the project, you had no treatment to the sidewalk along Hamilton Street, is that correct?
That's correct.
And when we were before the board last year, and there was no request at that time to do any sidewalk treatments along Hamilton Street.
Correct.
Okay. We then submitted our amended plan, it was reviewed, and the request came in to do the sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, you have a budget on this project, and how is that budget determined? Because it is a publicly funded project.
Well, the budget is really restricted by the rents that we can charge tenants, and obviously, all of those tenants will be tenants with fairly low incomes, low and moderate incomes. We are not able to raise rents, so we really have to make sure that what we do can be paid for by the limited rents that we can charge.
And as a matter of fact, part of this project is governed by a pilot, and a percentage of those rents go to the municipality in lieu of taxes.
Correct.
And you have a pilot agreement with Franklin Township that's in place.
Yes.
And when Hamilton Street asked us to put a soldier course both on Franklin Boulevard, Hamilton Street, and down Norma, was that anywhere in your budget when that request came in?
It was not.
Okay. And based on that request, what did you do to determine the cost of doing that?
We actually sent the detail, and we were certainly interested in finding out whether that was something we could do. We sent the detail to our general contractor and asked him to price out that treatment.
And what did you find out the cost of it would be along Hamilton Street?
About $50,000.
Okay. And you're going to be able to find somewhere the money to do it along Hamilton Street?
We will. We will have to find a way to do that.
Okay. And do you see any way budgetarily that you can put that same soldier course in along Franklin Boulevard or down Norma?
It would be very difficult for us to do it. And I will say that doing that, even along Hamilton, will eat into our reserves. And so we're really restricted by our budgets here.
Okay. Now, the other issue which has you concerned, and it's not a monetary concern, is the issue of the relocation of the driveway on Martin Street.
Correct.
Okay, and as the developer of the project and being familiar with renting out units, and again, on the first floor, near that driveway along Martin Street are going to be residences. Have you analyzed, as an owner-operator, the pros and cons of relocating the driveway along Martin Street?
We have.
Okay, and can you indicate to the board why you would like to keep the driveway as you have proposed it, as opposed to relocating it as requested by engineering?
Absolutely. In addition to the comments that Mr. Ford made and that you'll hear from Ms. Dolan, we are concerned with the fact that we would have to relocate a trash enclosure right in front of folks' windows on that first floor. And obviously, if you're looking out at what would be recreational space, you certainly don't want to see a trash enclosure there. Besides which, as you are sitting in that recreational space, as you're using it, and we're happy to have it there, you certainly don't want to be sitting next to a trash enclosure, particularly in the summer. We just think that the comfort of the residents, the marketability of the units really are negatively affected by that.
Also, do you have a concern about the appearance as you enter the site from Martin Street if that dumpster was to the right of the driveway?
We do. Honestly, I think that if you're driving in or walking into the property, if there's a dumpster enclosure in front of this really nice new building, all you're going to see is a trash enclosure. All you're going to see is a trash enclosure, as opposed to the building that our architects have worked so hard to make attractive.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
One
Yeah.
quick
Quick
question.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Mark, then Bob. You wanna-
I have a concern still going back to doing the pavers on Franklin Boulevard. It says, according to this latest report from Hamilton Street Business District, that they would not be looking for this to be done on Norma Avenue and Martin Street. And I would think, I hear what you're saying about the budget, but I start to think that this looks like half of a completed project with, not project, but sidewalk. I think if you're concerned about the aesthetics, I happen to agree with you about the dumpster not being a good spot if the driveway's moved. I really think you should find a way to continue the sidewalk. There's a plan for the district. That's a pretty visible corner, and in a sense, it's almost like saying that the people who live on the Franklin Boulevard side in your own building aren't quite getting the same amenities as the people on the Hamilton Street side. I think it's better for everybody if you could find the money to do it.
The one issue that we really have is that when we went to the state for funding, we obviously requested an amount of funding. We can't ask for more. We've come to the township for funding to fill a gap that didn't anticipate that. Certainly, we're looking to figure out how we can incorporate anything that we can. The budget is, I can't tell you how incredibly tight. Even the $50,000 is a fairly large percent of our budget. I certainly hear what you're saying. I'd like to. I don't see the space in the budget to do it. So, I'm not.
Mr. Thomas, I can tell you that when we did walk the site last Thursday with Hamilton Street, Ms. Lockett was there along with Mike Ford and representatives of Hamilton Street and also Reverend Soares. And, he indicated to them that he would look to see if there are other sources of funds where we can raise the money to perhaps do it. It's not a question of us not wanting to do it. Ideally, we would love to do it, but if the funds are not there, and Reverend Soares did make a commitment to the representatives of Hamilton Street that he would try to reach out to find sources to raise the money to do it on Franklin Boulevard. And I assume, his word is good. I'm not saying that we'll find it, but we're going to attempt to locate it. And we are dealing with a unique situation. We don't have a situation here where we have a developer who has deep pockets, who, can just write a check and get it done. They are restricted as to what they can do with the project, and it's limited. As you know, I've been here with some clients who have developed residential projects in this town, and the board has asked for certain things, and they have the ability to do those things. And I'm sure, and we've had a long discussion to try to find ways to get the money. And Ms. Lockett has indicated to me, as she's indicated to you, if there was a way to find the money to do it, we would do it. It's not that we don't want to do it. It's a question of not having the ability to do it and get the building built the way it needs to be built. I can't tell you any more than that. Now, I understand what you're saying, and in the perfect world, we would put that soldier course there. And the other thing, we even talked about is saying, maybe we can come back to the town to see if there are additional funds available here in the town of Affordable Housing Trust Fund monies to do that. But then you wonder, does it really make sense to take affordable housing money and put it in a sidewalk? And philosophically or morally, is that a thing that you want to do too? It's a real dilemma, and it's something we have wrestled with since the first report came out some weeks ago. And it's not a small ticket item. And again, on Franklin Boulevard, you're going to literally have to take out part of the sidewalk to put the soldier course in, because the sidewalk goes all the way to the curb. It's not just laying the pavers into grass, which is a little bit, cheaper to do. But, that's the real conundrum that we're in.
Maybe I shouldn't ask the next question then, but I'm going to anyway. But in the course of this project developing from beginning to end, if something should come up in between, something unexpected, is this project going to have the financial ability to finish it as it's planned and approved? This is a sidewalk. What if there's something, like I said, more serious once the construction starts? That's a change in the plan.
That's a good question, and there's a contingency for that. Generally, those contingency items, or those contingency line items, change orders and the like, are for things that were unanticipated, and they're generally not, they're certainly, not generally aesthetic items. They're generally things that have to go into the budget. So there is a contingency in the budget, which we're actually going to need to access to do the pavers, the soldier course there.
Right.
Ted, and then Bob.
Well, I will say that I don't see the need for the decorative pavers down along Franklin Boulevard. I think there will be much less pedestrian traffic along the Franklin Boulevard frontage. The only reason to walk down there will be to go to the post office, at least as long as the Postal Service maintains that post office, which we've had to fight them off once. So I will, vote a different way from Mr. Thomas on that. As far as the driveway goes, I think that the way you're proposing it is fine, but I do have one concern, and this just goes back to Mr. House's, the Director of Fire Prevention's comments on an earlier version of the plans. The turning template for the fire truck does not match the township aerial truck template. The turning radius for additional areas needs to be shown. Applicant should contact Fire Prevention to review areas of concern. I just want to be sure that this design is okay with him for fire truck access, which I think is a much more serious concern than whatever the engineering department's concern is.
We have, Dr. Chase, we have looked at that. We can accommodate the emergency vehicle. We will give Mr. House the information that he needs so that he is comfortable that if a fire truck needs to take that route, it can safely do it. And quite frankly, without making the drastic change that engineering wants, if we have to soften that a little bit to do accommodate a template or a fire truck, we can soften that. There's a drop-off area that we can modify a little bit if necessary.
I was hoping that. The final comment I'd have, and given your budget, you probably won't be able to accommodate it, but for that, the off-the-block old parking lot, on the other side of Norma and Martin, what the neighborhood could probably really use is a couple of basketball courts there, asphalt basketball courts.
What I said? I already asked for community gardens.
Oh. Well, I don't think the basketball courts would occupy all of it, and I'm sure if we consulted with Mr. Tibbs, he would want to see both.
Well, I was just thinking for use of the seniors, since it is a senior
Yeah.
residence, that, as I said, not only would it be environmentally friendly, but it would encourage the seniors to get out in the good weather.
I think I will yield to Ms. McIver's suggestion. For one thing, I'm sure it would be much friendlier to your budget than even minimal basketball courts. But we always have a concern for recreation in that area. And it would, if there's any way we can get even that much recreation in the area, it would help, but a community garden would also help.
Mr. Miller.
Actually, Dr. Chase said a lot of what I would have. I agree with him about Franklin Boulevard. I don't see that the people who have apartments on that side of the building are losing an amenity because there's no door out that side of the building to go onto Franklin Boulevard. And aside from that, I agree with the request that the applicant has made. And I'm just so pleased about the 2 restrooms, which cost money also, that I'm not looking to cause greater expenditures. And I guess the only other thing I would say, and Mr. Healy would know this as well as I do, as a member of the Redevelopment Authority, I know that our funds for low and moderate income housing in terms of what the town can kick in are getting very limited indeed. We just don't have a lot of money to add.
Yeah, and part of their request was an analysis of that, and they were, basically, we have enough money to continue operating the program, administering the program. We don't have a lot of money for additional new developments to come in, and they were basically, I would say, the last one to receive funding. And we have submitted that plan, and we had to do a detailed spending plan, submit that to COA, and we're awaiting their input.
Why don't we move on to traffic? And I'm hoping that most of the comments probably that we had to address have pretty much been made. So after traffic, it'll probably be very brief.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question, sorry for Ms. Luckett. The Hamilton Street asks for a deed restriction to deed restricted to seniors. Can you discuss, I'm assuming that's a requirement of your funding and, when a developer's agreement, with the township for our commitment to money, that would be in there as well.
Yes.
So could you comment to the degree that's going to be covered?
I can. Well, I will say that the 5 units we just discussed, being for veterans, are not age-restricted units, but other than that, I don't see an issue. Certainly, they will be restricted by the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency as seniors units anyway.
Yeah, we want to see it flipped,
Yeah, I don't think there's a need for a deed restriction. I think by virtue of the funding that we got, they have to be used as senior units.
Well, I'll say we'll leave that to the time when a developer's agreement for the commitment of the township funds, but I think.
And we
it'll have
could
to
put
be
that in the
discussed.
developer's agreement. Yeah, I think a deed restriction is superfluous, but, again, if the board feels it's something that they want, that's fine.
I think the bottom line is the township, it's a senior project. So, at the
Absolutely.
appropriate time, we'll have to talk to our township attorney what the appropriate legal mechanisms are.
Clearly, and I should add, there's a 30-year affordability period that will also run with that the age restriction
Yeah, and
as
usually,
well.
and that's a deed restriction as well. And what I've seen was when that's filed, that actually indicates whether it's age restricted or not.
Correct.
So I think there's several different ways that that's going to get attacked.
Absolutely.
Okay, traffic.
Which the Hamilton Street people would be aware of all these different things.
Raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name, please.
Elizabeth Dolan, Dolan.
Yeah, Ms. Dolan's been before the board many times, so
Okay.
accept.
Ms. Dolan, you're here tonight for two very brief issues. One is, obviously, we've asked the board to allow us to bank the parking on the lot across Norma, and you've issued a report and did an analysis based on the 140 parking spaces that we're proposing on site. Can you give the board your opinion as to whether banking is appropriate and whether there's adequate parking on the existing main site for the office and residential?
Yes, I performed a shared parking analysis. We have two different uses proposed on site, residential and office. And residential site improvement standards say that in a shared or mixed-use setting, a shared parking analysis is appropriate. So when you look at the parking demands of the office, which max out during the daytime when some of the residents are out, the residential, of course, is maxing out its parking demand overnight and in the late afternoon and early morning hours. So the calculations using hour-by-hour demands for each of the uses based on information published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and the Urban Land Institute show a maximum demand of about 117 spaces when you look at it from a shared perspective with the two uses, the size and type of uses. So certainly the 140 that are proposed on site exceeds that calculation with a generous buffer. So I don't believe that the 40 parking spaces off-site will be needed. I think that the 140 on site will satisfy the demands of the different uses based on the non-coincident peaking of the individual parking needs.
Okay. The other issue, and you've heard some of the discussion from Ms. Ford and Ms. Lockett, concerns the request of the Township Engineering Department to relocate the driveway that we're proposing on Martin to make it, in plain English, a straight shot, so to speak, from Martin into the site rather than to have a curved or angled driveway. Have you analyzed their request, and also have you gone out to the site to familiarize yourself with existing uses around that area?
Yes, and to follow up on some of the testimony from Mike Ford, the driveway's existing, and there's nothing wrong with the existing design. It accommodates two-way vehicular flow. It's wide enough not only for passenger vehicles, but also larger vehicles such as a smaller truck or a garbage truck. So that geometry is there, it's fine, it works. The curving alignment on site actually helps to keep the speeds down as people enter and exit the property, and that's another benefit, in addition to what Mike explained about the separation of the vehicles from the pedestrians. The big concern that I have is if the shift is made, we're going to be creating an offset that won't allow left turns into the driveways. If drivers are approaching these driveways and that offset is shortened, one person waiting to turn left into a driveway is going to block the other driveway. So it's creating a situation that will create impediments to left turn movements. We call it left turn lockup, whereas under the existing condition, the vehicles can pass. So I would it's my opinion that the driveway in its existing configuration and location can work appropriately, safely, and again, can accommodate not only passenger vehicles, but those larger vehicles that would be representative of emergency vehicles as well.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any questions for Ms. Dolan? Ted?
Ms. Dolan, did your analysis take into account that these apartments are going to be occupied by senior citizens who are perhaps, I would think, less likely to have cars than if it were general occupancy, so that in effect, there's probably even less need for parking than you have calculated?
I agree with you. I did not take any credits for that type of condition. I relied on the RSIS requirements based on bedroom mix. So, but I would agree with you that we're probably looking at a conservative estimate based on the analysis I performed.
Good.
I have a question.
Jim, after Bob LaCour.
No, I'm sorry.
And then Jim.
Mine's just, I did a lot of banking over there for a while, and I knew that around 3:30, it was, if you went out onto Norma Street and made a left towards Hamilton Street, you waited 2 or 3 minutes. How many people are going to be in the commercial building, the commercial portion that you're going to get when the school gets out with the school buses? The traffic that is on Franklin Boulevard now is just incredible at 4:30 to 5:30. All the different angles. So how are you going to take care of something like that with the people coming out of the commercial building and the people that could be going shopping or doing whatever, or the seniors coming back?
Well, just to go back a little bit, the original traffic study included the traffic associated with the originally proposed retail component here, and that's no longer part of the application. So the overall trip generation, the driveway movements for this current plan are reduced, and during those afternoon, evening peak hours, it's reduced down over 100 driveway movements. So there's been a substantial reduction in trip generation through the elimination of that retail component. And again, that doesn't take credit for pedestrian activity or any interaction between the uses.
Are you going to ask for maybe one-ways at all, or are you just going to leave it both?
The driveways are proposed now on Norma and Martin only. Those would be two-way driveways to allow the traffic to distribute and maybe not have to go through the signal, or during busier times, rely on that signal so that they can make rights to go around the block as opposed to some of the tougher lefts at certain
Did you
times.
say you're going to ask for a traffic light on Norma?
Not a traffic light. We have a full movement driveway on Norma and a full movement driveway on Martin.
One other thing I want to get back to, Ted, and with the basketball court and stuff. See, I love your idea. That's just as active for the seniors as it is a basketball court. So I
Well,
would love to see.
basketball court needs to be paved.
Yeah, I would
They're
love
taking
to. I would
pavement
love
up.
to see a commercial, a garden there myself. So I just wanted to get back and just.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you,
Jim.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Our engineer seems to have a real problem with the driveway locations. I'm not privy to the meetings, so I don't know what the discussions were. Were you there, Ms. Stone?
I was not at those
So
meetings.
you don't know what the discussions were? All right, the other question. When you looked at the driveway from that small office building that's across the way, did you do any analysis of that?
We actually
As
did
far
not.
as movements through there?
We didn't actually perform counts at that location,
Yeah.
but I know that that driveway predominantly accommodates inbound activity because there's egress
Yeah,
driveways.
So they just
coming
go
right back
in,
out.
they don't, so, it's a left turn in or a right, well, left turn, I think that's one-way street.
Predominantly left turn in at that
Yeah, so your
location.
person coming down to make a right turn into their driveway would have to be hung up a little bit maybe, but that office building is also very sparsely occupied.
And also, the volumes on Martin are rather low.
Yeah,
So
so
from a
I'm
turning
not-
movement
So what I'm trying
perspective,
to
it's
say is
not
I'm
an
not
issue.
sure that moving the driveway one way or the other is a real, that's a real impediment one way or the other.
It would, if two people came at the same time to turn left in, you'd block up there. But I don't feel there's anything wrong with the driveway and
I'm back to my
its.
driveway in the morning, I'm blocking the guy coming the other way, but that's two people. I'm talking about as a traffic generator. But keep in mind, that was a bank. That was the exit for the drive-up window and drive-out.
Correct.
window. There was another driveway that they closed up further up on the other side of the one across the street. And that worked, so, and there was probably more traffic then than there will be now.
Again, the overall projections for this development are not that high.
No, I know.
And the volumes on Martin are not that
So
high. But I think
I'm
from
not
a,
sure I understand the reasoning, but why we were moving, let's say our engineer has a being responded about moving the driveway. I think he's concerned with a safety consideration.
well, I don't see,
And I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. Maybe Mr. Lanford could tell me. He's been at the meetings, or Mr. Ford. What's the reason for moving the driveway?
because he wanted it moved.
No.
I'm serious, Jim.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come on, Peter.
he felt a straight shot in was more
I like the
appropriate.
Billy painted pink.
Yeah,
I mean, that doesn't-
that's, I mean, you know,
I don't think he wanted it because he wanted it. I think,
he felt a
his
straight
opinion.
shot into the site was better than an
Was
angled
he
shot.
concerned with people coming in and possibly overriding the curb where the patio is or where the lawn
That
is?
was never mentioned.
Driving on there?
I think it's his opinion that it would be a better alignment.
Yeah, but then and I recognize the problem with the dumpster though, which doesn't really.
And that's why they're presenting
No,
their experts.
I'm just saying,
You guys have
I'm
to
trying to
make up-
understand why
yeah.
it's such a hot number.
I think
Just because he wanted it.
we're in a difficult position because we don't have either testimony in person or even anything on paper from Mr.
It's
Howe.
just a comment.
Oh.
Item 43 in his report.
We only have your version of it, which, if we had his statement, we would be in a better position to judge what to do. Absent his statement, I'm tempted to go with I would go with your plan.
Well, I think the best point is the one that Mr. Pettit just made, which is, there was an existing alignment there that worked. And
I'm not
Most likely
understanding all
continue.
the nuances to it.
Well, we only have what we have before us. Are there any other questions for the traffic engineer? Because if not, we'll probably be done with witnesses. You can sum up, we'll open to the public, and we'll move on.
Okay. Thank you. Again, we've worked very hard to address a lot of people's concerns. And the Hamilton Street Business District has members that are volunteers. They've taken their time to meet us at the site. We took all of their comments very, very seriously. We appreciate their input. And as you can see in their report, they're not against the project. I think, this will be a positive for Hamilton Street. I do think that, from the testimony of Ms. Lockett, if we could have done the sidewalk, the Soldier Course on Franklin Boulevard, we would have. We can't. And again, I think, based on some comments of Reverend Soares, we'll see what we can do about providing it, but we would hope that if we can provide it, it would be outside of a mandate by virtue of the resolution, but by the ability of hopefully raising the funds to do it. I think the other open issue is the lighting, and I think we've talked that one through. And again, I don't see, we did look at it seriously, and to put two decorative poles on Hamilton Street, I don't think serves a purpose. We will gladly sit down with Mr. Healy and our architect. Again, if there's an issue of illumination, we can put some lighting on the building which would illuminate the street if that becomes necessary. And again, with respect to the driveway, we have some serious concerns. I was at the meeting, and and I asked, quite frankly, the engineering department, does the driveway we are proposing, does it not work? And they wouldn't say it didn't work. They said they wanted this. They didn't say that our driveway was impractical, unsafe, or unreasonable. I think based on the traffic testimony of Ms. Dolan, the testimony of Mr. Ford, and also the testimony of Ms. Lockett, again, from the aesthetic point of view, that to relocate that driveway really is a detriment and not a positive. We do understand, as Dr. Chase pointed out, that we do have to make it work, and we know we can make it work for fire safety, and we will make it work. Having said all of those things, I would respectfully request that the board grant the site plan approval, the one variance for the identification sign, and honor our request to not be required to comply with item 43, and to waive any sidewalk improvements or lighting improvements on Franklin Boulevard. Thank you.
And Pete, what are you asking to do on Hamilton?
We are going to put the sidewalk in on Hamilton Street.
The lighting on Hamilton.
We don't want to put two new light poles. Again, we don't feel they're appropriate. We would meet with our architect, and Mr. Healy can meet if additional lighting on the building is appropriate for illumination. We gladly will do that.
I just want to make sure, because that's everything you're asking, because typically the board will make a motion on what you're asking, and unless they're going to change that, because those were really the four issues, the lighting on Hamilton, the lighting on Franklin, the entranceway, and the sidewalk on Franklin. Those were the four outstanding issues.
Correct.
There's no public here, but because this is, for the master plan hearings, I'm just going to note that there's no public, so we don't have to open and close. But since this isn't actual development hearing, we'll just open anyway. So can I have a motion?
Make a motion to open to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing that there's no
No,
public, I
Conway
make a
might have a
motion to
comment.
close.
I don't think so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wanted to go
Aye.
2 hours ago.
Is there any further board discussion that we'd like to have on this matter, or any of the associated requests from the applicant? Okay. Seeing no takers, we'll formulate a motion. Ted, did you have one last?
Well, I just want to be sure the board is in agreement about not requiring the side courses of bricks along Franklin Boulevard, since Mr. Thomas did speak up for that, and I spoke up against it. And so,
Let me just say, that's not an issue that would allow me to vote or cause me to vote against a project like this that I consider to be a benefit and a good project. But I do think that it should have been considered from day one when this was being put together, that every attempt would be made to meet the Hamilton Street business standards like that. And I also will go one step further, while it may not be necessarily appropriate. I remember when, and it won't be in the resolution about trying to do some of these things, but I remember the last time I sat on a hearing when Reverend Soares was involved, it was his church being built. And he didn't want to build a sidewalk on Route 27, even though a lot of the parking was in off-site parking and people were walking. And we had a rather lengthy discussion, and he found money to do that. So I'm hoping he'll find the money to do this also. I think the garden is an outstanding idea, so that the land looks like it's visibly used, people can get some positive benefit out of it, and it's much less likely to become, to take on the appearance of a vacant lot where people might be congregating, and you end up having a bad mix between those particular people and the senior citizens in the project. So the sidewalk is not going to make me vote against the project, but I think it should be there.
If I might clarify before making a motion, you were talking about soldering, so you are talking about putting an edging of brick.
On Hamilton.
That's what they requested, yes, edging of brick along the existing sidewalk. And we're doing it on Hamilton Street, but don't want to do it on Franklin Boulevard.
Boulevard, okay.
Okay. Motion?
If we're ready, I'll make a motion to approve what the applicant asked for with the addition of the community gardens.
I'll second it.
Councilman Chase?
yes.
Mr. LaCourte?
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mettler?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
I'm voting yes. I'm still reluctant. I wish I knew more about the background of this driveway situation, because our engineer is not one to just throw things around like I just want it. I have not, that's not been my experience with him. He had reasons. I wish I knew all of the reasons.
You should have sent us a memo.
Mr. Thomas,
By voting yes, by the way.
Mr. Alderman,
Yes.
Mr. Onyaka,
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have 3 other hearings that are master plan amendments. We'll just take them in order, and Mark will give it, since we just had these at the last work session, we're all very familiar with them, so I asked Mark to give minimal treatment to them. We'll start with the Trap Rock area for the proposed master plan amendment.
Okay. This was discussed, as the chairman just indicated at your last workshop meeting. This is the formal public hearing per the municipal land use law, and as Chairman noted before, there's no public present, so I'll be brief. This is the Trap Rock area of the township. It's in the far southerly portion of the township, just north of the Kingston Village. This is the area that is covered by the Trap Rock Quarry and its, I guess, other lands owned by the quarry. Right now, it's within a number of zoning districts. One is the M3 zoning district, which allows quarrying as well as a number of other uses such as office, warehouse, light industrial uses. A portion is zoned within the research office laboratory zone, which also allows office research, other such uses, and a small portion is located within the A zone.
Jim, excuse me, can we focus?
Pardon me, I'll shut my mic off. Excuse me. Go ahead, I'm listening.
This is in an area of the township that is extremely rural in nature. It's not sewered. It's not sewered now. It's not planned to be sewered. There's no public water now, and it's not planned to have public water in the future. It is served by 2-lane roadways, and again, in an area of the township that's very rural in nature and surrounded by decidedly rural zoning districts. So the proposal is to amend the M3 zone to take out those uses, the office, the warehouse, the light industry, that is incompatible with the rural nature of that area of the township and which cannot be supported by the lack of infrastructure for those uses. And then to take out the ROL zone from that area and to expand the M3 zone to cover the area that is now occupied by the ROL zone. So basically, in essence, the Trap Rock Quarry area will be covered by a revised M3 zone that basically just allows the existing quarrying use and accessory uses to the quarry, the headquarters, and other things that go along with the quarry. A small portion of their lands that contains their entrance out to Route 27, very narrow, just contains the driveway, is located within the A zone, and that would also be included in the M3 because it's part of the quarry use. That's, in essence, the major part of the proposed master plan change. One last thing, there's a portion that's currently in the M3 zone that's actually now part of the Delaware and Raritan Canal State Park. That's proposed to go to the Canal Preservation Zone, only because that's just more consistent with the existing and future use of that area.
Okay, so that's the master plan amendment, which is different than the reclamation plan, which is next, but we'll handle these one at a time. So again, noting that this is a public hearing on the master plan, there is no public present, so we can just do,
What I would suggest is see if the board has any comments or questions, and if not, we've provided a draft resolution for your consideration.
and when we're going to vote on that, we're going to do it by roll?
Yeah.
Okay, does the board have any discussion on this? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Seconded?
Councilman Chase,
Yes?
Mr. LaCourte,
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver,
Yes.
Mr. Mettler,
Yes.
Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Alderman,
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Next, we'll move on to Mark's summation for the Trap Rock reclamation and site rehabilitation.
And George Conway from Trap Rock is here. This is their essentially an application that they need to make every 5 years, I believe, or 6 years, for the future rehabilitation and reclamation of the quarry. Their proposal, again, the board was provided a summary at the last meeting. In essence, the proposal is for the quarrying activity to remain the same as it has been approved in the past. The one amendment to it is that they're proposing to be allowed to allow 300 feet width area around the perimeter of a portion of the quarry, to be allowed to put overburden in that area. And again, it has to be in an area that's adjacent to existing quarrying activities, and it's specified, it's indicated very specifically in their submitted plans where that could occur. And Mr. Conway, if you have any additional comments or input.
I'll just expand upon that a little bit.
Can you just use the...
George, could use the...
Probably
Just expand on that a little bit. Let me make sure I have it right here. The north and west boundaries will stay the same. That would be the Route 603 Laurel Avenue and Route 518. There will be no change whatsoever on the boundary or the offset, which will be 200 feet. The changes that we're talking about would happen on the east and southern parts of the M3 zone, which are on the inside of the land. So on those areas, the boundary line would stay the same for mining purposes, but there would be a 300-foot offset from the mining zone for ancillary uses of roadway overburden, and that would be it.
And in one of our discussions, you had indicated a guess of how high the berm might be and how wide it might be?
The berm will, when it's built, it would be probably similar to what the berm looks like on 518. In some areas, it would be a 2-to-1 slope, so based on that, if it's 50 feet high, it would be 200 feet wide. I'm not saying it'll be that high. We have the berm that we now have on 518 is probably 25 feet high, so it'd be 100 feet wide on a 2-to-1 slope. And in time, it'll look exactly like 518. I mean, the trees and the natural growth in the area will just make it grow. It'll look better. It always looks better naturally than if we plant it, because it doesn't always look the same.
Okay. Any board discussion?
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Mr. LaCourte?
Yes.
Ms. MacGyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mettler?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Alderman?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini?
Yes. The last master plan amendment we're going to consider is the Easton Avenue R20.
Yes.
And again, noting for the record that there is no public present.
Yes,
Mark.
yeah, this is a a much smaller area in size, certainly, than the Trap Rock area. This was actually requested by a developer. They received a variance from the zoning board to develop a site that's located within the R40 zone, and the approval that they received was to do a subdivision at a density of R20, which is half-acre lots. The reason for that approval was because the property, and again, the property is off of Easton Avenue in the neighborhood of Johnny Bush and Lakeside. It was called the Lakeside subdivision before the zoning board. The reason for that approval was that site is really connected to and really part of an R20 neighborhood, as opposed to the R40, which goes along Cedar Grove, which is actually developed, even though it's zoned R40, it's actually developed with multifamily. So, the argument they made successfully to the zoning board was that the R20 development fitting in with the scale and pattern of the R20 neighborhood was more appropriate development for that site. They've now come to the township, and they're asking for the area to be rezoned to R20. In order for that to happen, you have to have a master plan amendment first, so that's why it's here. And I would offer that I think if I was looking at this from a blank slate, it's R20 is the more appropriate zone for that property, for the same reasons the zoning board granted the approval.
Any further board discussion?
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Mr. LaCourte?
Yes.
Ms. McIver?
Yes.
Mr. Mettler?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Alderman?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini?
Yes. I don't think there's anything else tonight.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.